Hello, and welcome to Dawn's Craft Riot. Today, I figured that I would go away from what I have been doing the past few shows where we've been using a pattern paper to speak for itself. I decided this time I'd use no pattern paper at all. I am going to use some stamps, and these are more of the stamps I can find at my dollar store, so they're Forever in Time brand stamps. I'm finding them, I'm in Canada, I've been finding them for $2 Canadian. This is the first time that I purchased a stamp set that wasn't like really good from this line. And I'm having a little bit of an issue with my umbrella stamp. There's a bit of an impression that doesn't like to ink. You can sort of see it there. So I'm working on filing that down and getting it usable. And also, you may be happy to hear that I have tried to solve my blurriness issue with the camera, so hopefully my measures that I took there will help solve that problem, and hopefully we'll have most everything in focus today. Alright, so let's just move right on to it. We're going to use the stamps, so that means we're going to use ink. I'm going to use a lot of Distress ink today, and I'm also going to use a little bit of Versamark ink because I'm going to heat emboss for a resist. I love doing that. You guys know I love doing that. If you watched the show before, I would imagine you've probably seen me do something like that. I've made a small card base. I am going to make a card. I'm going to use the techniques I'm using these techniques to make a card today. Not my regular sized card, which is half of a normal, like regular letter sized piece of paper cut in half. Today I've gone with a smaller card. I've based my measurements on my focal stamp, which is this Hello Sunshine with the sunshine. I measured that stamp. It was just over 2.5 inches across its largest part, so I decided to go ahead and make the focal piece 3 by 3 inches just so that I could center up my image nicely. And then I'm going to put it onto a 4 by 4 square card, so that means that I cut my card 4 across and 8 long. And I'm using watercolor paper that I purchased. Oh, of course. Sorry camera. I'm just going to use that white to see if you I wanted to show you the tooth on the paper. All right. That was my fault for trying to show you the tooth on the paper. I'm using watercolor paper from the dollar store because I'm using a lot of water for my techniques. I'm just trying to get my focus back here. Let's see if it'll do it on my words. I wasn't trying to trick you, camera. Really, I wasn't. Let's be buddies. There we go. There we go. There's the focus back. So I'm going to start with my heat embossing. That's my focal stamp. I'm going to use Hello Sunshine. I'm going to emboss white on top of this white because I want to do a resist, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. So I'm going to use my Versamark ink. I've got Studio K embossing powder. I'm just going to do it right on top of this little scrap piece of paper. So the only other supplies I have are my Distress inks, a blending foam, which I don't think you really need, and a whole bunch of clean water, some in a spray and some in a jar. All right. Now we could have gone ahead and used a powder tool to get this paper less staticky so that we don't get little stuck down white spots that aren't where our image goes. Let's see how well this did. I think my Versamark might be drying out. Might be time to re-ink that. Oh, it looks like it worked fine. Yeah, I have an image. we'll heat emboss that and see how it looks. I see that the N on Sunshine could maybe use a bit more. I don't know if it'll stick, but let's give it a try. All right, we'll heat emboss it. Oh, and again, I'm sorry, camera. How do you focus on my heat embossing tool? Or heat tool, as we like to call it. Okay, so come on, friendly camera. While I dump my powder back into my container, I'll put down some words and see if that helps the camera at all. So I see my measures weren't entirely helpful. In fact, it may be time to go camera shopping. Come on, camera. There we go. Hello, Sunshine. Don't be blurry, Sunshine. All right, we'll get the embossing out of here. We only needed the heat embossing for one step. One small step for man. I'm going to set this. Actually, you know what? We might as well go ahead. I was going to set it off to the side, but we might as well go ahead and do the next step to this so that it's drying off to the side. Oh, and of course I forgot to wipe off my stamp. That seems like a typical thing to forget, but I do want to do it because I used Versamark ink, and that's real sticky, really sticky ink. So I want to get some of that I want to get all of that Versamark ink off of there so it doesn't dry on my stamp. All right, there. Now we're done with that. Move to the side. We're doing a resist technique, and for this sunshine part, I'm going to be using some sunshiny colors. So I've got squeezed lemon. I think we'll go with, well, scattered straw. It's a bit orangey. Well, they're all orangey, the colors I'm looking at right now. So I think I'm going to go with wild honey and squeezed lemonade. And maybe keep mustard seed on hand just in case. I'm going to start with my lightest color. And I think I'm going to use my piece of paper again as just an overage. Just a place to start my blender on. This is a very light color, so it doesn't matter so much if I get a straight across line of it. But if I was using a dark color and I put my blender right down, I get a line of demarcation of where I stuck the blender. So you do want to have something where you can work off the edge. And I could do it on top of my craft mat, but I want to use that for the next step for sort of painting with the Distress ink. So I'm going over basically this whole thing with my lightest color. And put the lid back on that one. Then I'm going to come in, I think I'm going to take some of this mustard seed next. I'm just going to add some interest in around sort of the edge of the sun part. I really like this stamp set that's got the sun and the rain. I think you can get some nice color contrast going with the sun and the rain theme. Now I'm just going to take a bit of Wild Honey, which is a bit more orangey but still sort of yellowy, and just hit the edges. Just want this to be sort of bright and sunshiny. And then one more thing on this piece, and that is I've got a little napkin. I've just dipped it in some clear, clean water. I'm just going to wipe any ink off of my white, my heat embossed powder. So I have a Hello Sunshine, and I'm going to just take a little bit more water and just sort of touch it to the rest of my ink. I'm going outwards in a ray-like motion just in case you can see any of these lines later, but I just want to sort of blend those colors together with a little bit of water. All right, so there's my focal point of my little card. I'll move that off to the side. Oh, don't put it on top of the thing you need next, which is some tape. I'm going to move my yellow colors away. I'm going to start using some blue colors for the rainy background. Work really hard not to have this blur on you, folks. So I'm using a bit stronger of a tape than I'd like you to use, but, well, you don't have to use tape either. You don't have to mask this, but I am going to mask the back side of the card because I don't want the color going on that side. So I'm just leaving the front available. This tape is, like, I don't want you to use something that's going to tear up the paper, so hopefully this tape will not be on it long enough. But it's a little bit stronger of a tape than you might need to use for this. It's for walls and things. That's a little stronger. Okay, so I've got a couple of cute stamps I want to use. I would like to use this Splish Splash stamp and also the tear, the little raindrop. There's a couple more raindrops attached to this umbrella that I was thinking about cutting out, but I'm not sure if I want to do that yet, so I'm just going to avoid that step here, but something to think about for later versions of this card. So I've picked 3 colors that I liked for a stormy sky, for a rainy color theme. I picked Chip Sapphire, Stormy Sky, and Weathered Wood. So Chip Sapphire is very dark. I'm going to take the Stormy Sky and I'm going to ink up my Splish Splash stamp. Now this is going to give me a bubbly appearance. It's going to bead up because I've not prepared this stamp in any way. But that's okay because I'm doing layers and we're going to hit this with water, and I'm not sure how much of it is going to be visible at all anyways. So I'm just going to I'm going to stamp this a few times in the background. In fact, I want to make a pattern that goes all the way down the back of the card, or all over the front of the card, pardon me, but it will be behind the focal point. That's why I'm thinking of it as the back of the card. So I'm just offsetting it. I'm letting it run off the edges of the, like off the sides of the paper. Hello. I'm playing with some distress inks to make a layered card. Alright, so there's the background of the Splish Splash. I'm just going to stamp the rest of that blue ink off of here. And then I'm going to take some of this weathered wood and apply it directly to my craft mat because I want to use it as a paint. And I don't have the little bottles of just the stain or of the paint, so I'm going to use just clear water and a brush. And that was the Stormy Sky. I'm just gonna paint some of this on, and then I'm going to pick up a different color and we'll add some of that as well. Low. So if you've come in a little bit late, this was the focal point that we've done. It's a little resist using a white on white heat embossing. And I'm trying to get sort of a rain splattered look. I'm just going to put some drops of water on there. And I think we need to hit this with the heat tool. And actually I've got a little puddle that I want to lift up with my paper towel. It'll lighten up some of that color. The water will help lift away and move the distress ink. All right, back to the heat tool. And while I'm heating it, I'm going to also wipe up that little puddle of ink because I think next we're going to want to do some dry blending. I want to put some of that darker chipped sapphire color on the outside because mostly we're only going to see the outside because the focal point is going right on the middle with just like a ½ an inch on each side. All right, I think we're good for blending. I think that's dry. I'm going to slide this piece of paper under here. You don't have to do that. It's just so that I don't make a mess because I'm kind of a messy player. Messy, I don't know what the word would be. All right, I'm just using my foam blender again. And because this is a super dark color, the chipped sapphire, I'm really going to want to be sure to start off of the page. It's a little bit harder because this is blending, like bending upwards because it's watercolor paper and I've gotten it pretty wet. So I'm just going to hold it down because I want this to be a very organic and not sharp lines kind of thing. This is a real quick one today. We're almost finished. So I crinkle up my paper underneath, make it more difficult for myself. All right, so let's use this little raindrop stamp. I'm going to do a couple things with this guy. I'm going to get some chipped sapphire on it and just stamp directly with the dark color. Just in a few places. Oh, that's not as random as I'd like. The old human brain can't do random so well. And then the other thing I want to do with this is stamp with water and see if we can get some variation going on. So I'm just going to get some water and cover my stamp with it. I don't know if I can get it to cover nicely enough. I might have to make a little puddle of water and dip my stamp into it. So let's try that. Just want the stamp wet. Now it looks like it's gonna bubble out a bit more than I was hoping. And I've just knocked my stamp off. Well, I guess we'll get a few shapes like water anyway. I'm going to hit it with my heat tool again. The great thing about the distress inks is that they're reactive with water, so even if you dry them, if you hit them again with water, they're still going to change and move and react. All right, so one more step on here. I think we're going to do the old spritz and flick, where you get your sprayer to work and you get some water in your hand and then you spritz it on there. Spritz and flick it on there. Get that out of the way. Oh, I got a splot on my back. I got a splot on the back of the card. I didn't cover it well enough. Oh well. One more heat tool. One more shot of the heat tool, and then I think we're going to be ready to assemble. And some dabs. I like the dabs. They work for me. Now, if the crinkliness of the paper bothers you, you can always go ahead and flatten it out before attaching the front of your card, like the focal point. I'm not going to do that. It doesn't bother me. I don't mind. It just needs to be dry enough to actually glue. I think we're getting there. So let's get this tape off of here. And it was a little bit stronger than I had hoped. Like I was saying, use a not quite as strong as that tape. Like a yellow artist tape would be very good for this, I would think. All right. You're almost there. Come on, fingers, peel up the tape. I know you can do it. You've done it before. Actually, I need another tiny piece of tape. This is dollar store tape. This is pretty much an entirely dollar store card except for the inks and the embossing powder. But there you go. It's like a little, sort of like a thank you card or a thinking of you card that has the rain and the sun. So a real simple card for you today. Playing with distress inks, having a little fun. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for watching on the video. I hope you play with your inks, with your stamps. Hope you have a lot of fun making cards and things for your friends. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Hope to see you next week. I'll do my best to be here. If not, I'll be here the week after that. Again, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye-bye.